Hey everybody, Chris Druin with the EAM Consulting Group and Sandler Training, sitting with our managing partner, our owner, Erik Meyer, with his Sandler coffee cup and his President's Club poster in the background. I'm still working from home as we're doing our social distancing, but Erik and I really are taking heed of what we believe right now. It's time to help people. It's time to give back. So we normally charge to do trainings, to do coaching. And we want to put this out there as a way to remind people that there's help out there, as a chance for us to give back and a chance to remind people that it's time to sell. So we've been going through the Sandler 49 rules. And Erik, today I have rule number 47, and I'll read it to you. And I'd like to have you give us your first take right away. So rule number 47, selling requires that you remain objective at all times. Getting emotionally involved is fatal in sales. How do you think that applies to today?
I think it can apply a couple of ways. I do want to just acknowledge you're quarantined to your house. Everyone watching these things, including your wife and my wife, might not be surprised to find out that I've been quarantined to our office. And this is just kind of where I've been, Chris. I'm moving around each different video to a different spot in the office. And we're having fun.
It's definitely getting a little bit of normalcy back to have conversations with people I have conversations with every day. Yeah. It's giving us a chance to do something new and different. So you quarantine there. I'm going to stay here with my wife and 3 kids. And she's a teacher, so she's trying to still teach 26 other kids as we're going through this as well.
No, I like it. And you know, just to be fair, I live less than a mile away from here. So it's like going to pick up my newspaper. So Sandler Rule number 47. What that means to me, sales is no place to get your emotional needs met. It's a place to go to the bank, right? Sales can be a very emotionally charged activity. Selling can be a very emotionally charged activity. There is a place for passion, and I always find that this rule can be misinterpreted as being or trying to remove passion from selling, and that's not the intent. It's great to be passionate about selling. I'm passionate about what we do. Our clients are passionate about what they do, but there is potentially a very dangerous environment that can get created for the sales side of the dialogue when they become emotionally engaged in the environment they find themselves in. And here's what that means. I mean, just a real quick example. Do you know how sometimes, and this is something you and I will hear from our client base when we're helping them understand this stuff, but they'll say things like, I got a real hot opportunity, right?
All the time.
Real hot opportunity. And just, sharing a pursuit like that is a little bit of insight into being emotionally attached to it, right? Because it's not a hot opportunity until it's done. And there's a lot of conversation that can take place between meeting a prospect early on and finally getting to a position of them being able to comfortably say yes or no. And if the sales side gets emotionally attached to that outcome too soon, which is what typically happens, they can't see it clearly for what it is. And I'll also find probably the bigger problem there isn't that it gets in the way of getting yeses so much as it gets in the way of seeing clear no's in places where they should probably be moving on, right? The salesperson should be moving on. There's not an opportunity to get to yes. If they're emotionally involved, they're not going to see that like they should. They may spend too much time chasing around prospects that aren't ready to work with them, ready to do business with them.
You know, there's 2 words I keep coming back to. One is objectivity. Of course, it's a word in the rule. But the other one is empathy, and to look at it through the prospect's eyes, to try to put yourself in their shoes for what their true pain is, and not looking at it from the salesperson about what's emotionally going to happen if and when I close this sale. We teach in the Sandler sales process all the time, get a yes, get a no, but don't chase. And I think that a big part of this will be that if we get too emotionally involved in the sale, we're going to fail to disqualify and to put that no out there and move on. And we will continue to chase, and we will continue to hear things that aren't there, or try to put things in our picture that really aren't there.
Yeah. And, a couple of ways to help with that. I find really just having sales process can take the emotional attachment to a selling environment and reframe it with objectivity. So if you don't have a really clearly defined sales process, and a lot of our prospects come to us because they don't have something like, a Sandler process or a sales process, winging it's been the way that they've been doing it more or less, which is okay when it works well enough, but definitely gives an opportunity for emotional involvement. So if you've got a sales process, it's much easier to be objective. You can look at your sales process, look at where you're at in the conversation with your prospect. If you can't clearly identify what step you're at, with what we call an upfront contract to clear the next step, you may be the only one interested in pursuing it at that point.
Yeah.
If both parties were, then there'd be clarity there. Both parties would have agreed to it, and we'd both know where we were headed and where we went from.
So bringing this back around to where we sit today on March 20th, 2020. Can you think of something that might make a salesperson emotional in today's day and age, where we're dealing with people that are having uncertainty in the markets, having uncertainty in their company, having uncertainty in finances? I think that there might be a lot of wasted energy, a lot of chasing, and a lot of spinning of wheels, where there's abundance out there still. There's business out there. Where are you spending your 8, 10, 12 hours in a day, whether it's prospecting or having a sales meeting or having a conversation? I think that now is a perfect time for us to talk about this rule, because I admit it, I'm getting emotional about this. We're all in a time of uncertainty. We're all in a time of uniqueness, having our children at home, trying to self-educate, trying to quarantine, trying to do all this other stuff. But let's still look at it objectively and not put the emotion into it and screw up the activities that we're trying to do and the normalcy we're trying to stick to.
Yep. So I like to think of a diagram that I came across, written by a guy who, as soon as I brought it up, it just blanked on me, Chris. So let me see if I can grab that one back in my head again. Who came up with Viktor Frankl?
Viktor Frankl, okay.
So Viktor Frankl was a famous psychologist. He's a Harvard professor. He spent time in a concentration camp, if I remember correctly, when he was a young person. And he wrote at length about this interaction that people go through, humans go through every day. And if you could kind of picture it, it's these two columns. One side of it is stimulus, and then the column next to it's response. So most of what we do is based on stimulus and response, Viktor Frankl's model. You have a hot stove you touch, you pull back, right? Stimulus, response. The problem with it is that generally that interaction is emotional response, is what that really means, right? So let's turn it around a little bit. You wake up excited about the day, and then some type of negative force hits you, right? So there's the stimuli. Unprepared response may be, I absorb that negativity, right? More likely than not, we let that stuff kind of filter in, and that's where the emotional attachment comes into play. So the model, if you want to think about it, is stimulus on this side, response on this side. That's the natural progression.
I'm sharing the example.
Oh, you got it up there. There we go.
Yeah.
So I was like, what happened? So all we want to do is we want to drop a middle column in there, and that middle column is well thought out, well-designed process. And the beautiful part about having a sales process, just on this topic, there's nothing emotional about it. Process is binary. It's ones, zeros, 1 0, 1 0, 1 0, right? And if you don't have process to drop in between stimulus and the response, it'll always be an emotional reaction. And there's no way to really plan, prepare, and be objective if we're running without process in between. So here's a good example. Stimulus this morning, if you grabbed a cup of coffee and flipped the news on, negative, 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 right? Response may be, I don't feel so good. I'm not excited about the day. I'm worried about things I can't control. So drop in between there, do your behaviors. Sandler process, everyday salespeople we work with are meant to go out and do their cookbook, right? Had a coaching call this morning with one of our good clients who sells in heavy industry or heavy industrial CapEx kind of stuff. They've got things going on. She wanted to understand, what should she do today? I said, well, let's pull your cookbook out and start there, right? So stimulus, response inside of that process. And if you don't have a well-defined cookbook and you don't have a well-defined sales plan, it's no surprise in most cases everything's going to be an emotional response to the reaction that people find themselves in.
Yeah. I think this is the diagram that you were looking for.
Yeah.
So I'll just read the quote here, and this is Viktor Frankl ingeniously highlighted the self-awareness management process when he stated there is a space between stimulus and response, a space within which we can choose how we will act. But according to neuroscience research, this space is non-existing between 95 and 99% of the time. Since a very early age, we start establishing certain behavioral, emotional, and cognitive patterns that become encrypted into our subconscious mind. And as we reach around 35 years of age, this subconscious mind dictates most of how we feel, think, and act.
Yep.
So I like that that there is that gap there. And that gap between the stimulus and the response is our decision in how we choose to react, our response to the stimulus. So again, you know, I made the joke the other day, or you made the joke about the elephant in the room, that you were wearing your baseball hat and your quarter zip, and I was actually wearing a tie, which I'm not today. But the stimulus of waking up knowing I'm going to be home, quarantined with my wife and 3 kids, took a shower, shaved, put on a dress shirt, got my new shoes out of the box. Yep.
Nice. Yeah.
And I said, I'm still going to work today. So I'm still going to meet that role. I'm still going to do my cookbooks. I still had a talk today. I still had a networking event today. I still made phone calls. I still made some LinkedIn connections. I still taught a class. I keep going back on these podcasts we're doing and talking about the new normal. I think we're kind of redefining that every single day. But if we keep doing the cookbooks, we keep doing the objective behaviors that we know will get us results, and the objective behaviors that we don't go into each call expecting a sale. We go into each call expecting to set a sales meeting, or we just call people and say, how are you today? How are things going? How can I help? These are the behaviors that will help us network, to help us connect, that will give us the results in the long run. And I'm hoping that as we start pushing these videos out, that people will start seeing that we're helping, and they're going to come back to us and say, okay, let's add Erik on LinkedIn and follow him. Let's add Chris on Facebook and follow him. Let's see when their next class is and see if I can crash a class, or I can sit down and talk to them about how I help my sales organization. Altruistically, we are doing this to give back and help, but we make a living teaching and coaching, and we want to find more prospects and clients. And this is an opportunity for us to network as well. Let's not hide behind that.
Absolutely. And you know what, Chris? Just as an encouragement for anyone that's put their prospecting behavior on hold, I know you haven't this week. I haven't this week. We're doing our cookbooks, and I've set up new sales meetings, and I've had conversations with people that want to continue doing business because they need to, and they have pains that we can solve and fix, and we're moving. And I want everyone to remember that that's the case. One of the decisions we can make in between that stimulus and response, thinking of sales being no place to get your emotional needs met, it's a place to go to the bank, is the perspective of what we do and what kind of time frame we do it with. So here's what I mean. Most decisions, you go back to what Viktor Frankl was talking about, most decisions and reactions, those responses, are made in a 24 to 48 hour time frame on the long side. On the shorter side, it's split second stuff, right? So the response is made for fears or concerns or preparation for the next day or two or that second. But there's a choice where we can drop in our decision making and how we want to respond with more of a mindset of 5 to 10 years, right? When you start thinking about the actions that we're going to take today, but you think about them in that perspective of 5 or 10 years, it becomes a lot clearer on what is actually going to gain and going to add the most compound value and interest over time. Making an outbound call today isn't necessarily going to turn into a sale today, but not doing it's going to put you that much further behind the people that are actually doing it today.
Well said.
And you never know where it's going to come full circle. Reaching out to someone today, even if there wasn't a pain you can help them solve and fix, but you touched them, you said hello, you wished them well, made them feel better than they were before they received the call. 5 years down the road, that may be your next best client, best referral resource, best friend, fill in blank. But have the perspective of 5 to 10 years and swap that out of what might normally otherwise be the perspective of, the second or the next day or two. It's very hard to make good decisions in that short of a time frame.
Well, I could just think back to how many of the people that I've known in networking for 5 years, 10 years, 15 years, just because we don't run in the same circles, not the same sphere of influence, we don't have a lot of, it's not that mortgage banker realtor relationship or accountant bookkeeper relationship. But I'll be darned if some of the times the biggest and best referrals you get are the ones that come out of the blue when they go, hey, I know that this is normally 5 times your average deal size, but do you mind talking to my buddy? Yes, absolutely. It's cultivated, it's friendships, it's relationships, it's putting out there our personal brand, it's putting out there what we do, it's helping people, it's building those foundations and those behaviors. And if you expect it overnight, that's the emotion part of it. You can't take emotion to the bank. So we have to worry about being profitable, closing business, and using the Sandler sales system to get there and prospecting to get the system in place.
Yes. And right now, more than ever, do your behaviors. Do your behaviors.
So we teased the other day about previewing the next episode, and you yelled at me. So I've been watching Lego Masters with my kids, and they're now understanding the whole cliffhanger scene about going to commercial right before you get the answer. We're not going to preview the next episode, but we now have a YouTube channel. We don't have intro screen, outro screens. It's not fancy production yet. We're going to get there. What's that?
Are we doing star swipes?
We can do star swipes, and we can do the Michael Spagat PowerPoint for the Office fans out there. But we are going to have a YouTube channel. We've got that submitted to the Apple Podcast verification system right now. And if there's any topics that you think that you would like us to cover, anything that you want us to go over, whether they are the Sandler rules, whether you're an alumni, whether you have questions about what we do, in the video or the YouTube, comment, like the channel, follow it, share it on your social media. We're going to put this on our LinkedIn. We're going to email this out to our clients. It's time that we start using what we do and the technology available to help some people, and we're going to start putting it out there.
Absolutely. Stay safe, everyone. Train hard.
Sell easy.
There we are. Yeah.
You caught me off guard. I wasn't ready for it. Do it again.
Train hard.
Sell easy. Oh,
yes.
Wow, that was a little scary. Erik, have a great weekend. Everyone, have a great weekend. I'm saying have a great weekend, even though this will probably go out Wednesday of next week. But we're going to keep putting these out. Like I said, any topics, let us know. Thanks, guys.
See you, Chris.
Bye-bye.